That's what GA4 is, right? Because you need all new code to be put in, and if you're not careful, and if you outsource that code to a third party, you may not be admins for that new account. And that would be a shame to leave that vendor 2 years later and realize that all that history is theirs, and that you're not going to be able to keep your Google Analytics.
Welcome to the Matador Buscast. Tune in for everything you need to know to stay in the know regarding the automotive industry. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jason Harris here, and thank you for joining me on another episode of the Matador Buscast. That's right, I said Buscast. It's not a plane, it's not a train, it's not an automobile, and it's not a yacht this time. Yes, we are in a bus, and I'm here with the one, the only, the oh-so-famous Mr. George Nenni. George, thanks for taking the time to jam with me.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it.
It's a nice bus.
It's a heck of a bus.
Yeah, I can take this to a Bengals game.
You know what I was doing?
Remarking.
Yeah, right? When I was doing research, I came across it. And only in Texas would you find the largest party bus in the U.S.
It is, really. Nice.
That's what they say it is.
How many people total fits in?
60 people they've told me they can fit in here. That might be a little tight, but I'd go with that. Sure,
I don't know if I have 60 good enough friends.
Right? Thanks very much. Like I said, thanks so much for taking the time, Jen. This is going to be a lot of fun. Hey, George, you know I like kicking off these podcasts with a little origin story. Because honestly, I'm just fascinated myself of how people get into the industry, because nobody just wakes up one day and goes, yeah, I want to be in automotive. Like, that sounds great. Like, that'll be fun, right? So, George, how did you get started in this crazy little world we call the automotive industry?
Yeah, so 1993, I joined Dealer Specialties. That was a startup. Two of my brothers had started that business in '89, and so I joined as really the first employee. We grew that business tremendously through the 90s. They sold the business to Trader Publishing in the early 2000s. I stayed on. Trader began making a number of acquisitions. I was fortunate enough to run a few of those companies, and then left in 2017 to start Generations Digital.
Nice. And I love all your content, man. I think there's so much thought you put into it. You know, it's like that. Look, I read a lot of white papers. I consume as much content as I possibly can. And there are a handful of people out there that I'm just like, you know what's actually really impressive about you, George, is you can take one of the most boring things and actually go, yeah, I want to do that. That sounds like fun. And I appreciate all the time and effort you put in to that amazing content. Hey, let's get into, we're here, Dallas, Texas, right? It's NADA 2023. Wow, what a show, huh? Little sensory overload.
Dallas is a new venue because it takes a little navigating to get around, I think, for the first time. But great venue. NADA, there's really no event like this. Where everyone you want to see is here. Every company you want to demo or check out is here, and so it's incredible networking. It is.
It's a lot of fun. Sometimes for me, it's like, wow, there's just so much, and then you end up leaving going like there's like 17 other things and places and booths and stuff I wanted to stop at. But you have some amazing workshops. You had one yesterday, and you got one tomorrow.
That's right.
G4 Analytics is the big theme. So why don't we dive into a little bit? What would you say maybe like some of the top 3 kind of takeaways would be from the workshops?
Yeah. So we're talking a lot about GA4. The workshops were around fixed ops, using Google Business Profiles to drive fixed ops growth. Mm-hmm. And so that was yesterday, and then we're doing another workshop tomorrow. And really that opportunity is a blind spot, I think, for a lot of dealers. And really all I'm doing is asking the dealers to take a look at the big retailers out there, namely Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot, Kroger, any major department store, any major grocery, or any major big box that's in a number of different profit centers is building out separate Google Business Profiles for each of those listings. And so if you're watching this podcast and you've got your phone handy, grab your phone and search for pharmacy near me, or bakery near me, or deli near me. You'll probably find some of your local town providers that you know and love. You're also going to see Walmart, and you're going to see Kroger. Why is that? Because they've built specific departmental Google Business Profiles for the florist, for the bakery, for the deli, because they could never optimize one single profile for all those different departments. And so in the workshop, I show those examples and challenge dealers to say, why do you think you're any different? And show how when you build out separate profiles for service, body shop, parts, and sales, you actually increase your real estate and you optimize for non-branded category search.
And it is really important. I mean, I actually just had an experience myself. I just moved to Nashville, Tennessee, so
nice.
I don't know where everything is. It's my daughter's birthday. I want to get her some flowers. I text my wife. I say, I'm driving right now. Can you look up a florist for me and just send me the address? She sends me the address. I pull up into the shopping center, and I call her back. I said, hon, I don't see it. There's a Kroger's. The only I'm standing. I'm at the address you sent me. There's the only thing. There's a Kroger. I don't see a florist anywhere. And she's like, "Oh, well, but don't they have flowers inside?" I said, "Oh, yeah, they probably do." And sure enough, that's exactly what it was.
Right.
And it worked. I mean, it totally works.
And they really have to. In GBP, Google Business Profile, you have something called a category, and the categories are a really, really primary ranking factor for all those profiles. And so, for the Kroger florist, their primary category is florist, right? If they were to set up that store as a single profile, and they had department store as number one and deli as a second category, and all the way down their ninth secondary category was florist, they would never rank for that. It really is all about your primary category. And so that's why dealers, if they set their service primary category as auto repair, their body shop primary category is body shop and collision center, then they're able to show up and rank for those. It's the only way that works.
And the best part of this, it's free.
It's free, yeah.
Like it's I think
It's
of the hundreds of thousands, the millions of dollars our industry spends to market to our customers, and this is something that's powered by the biggest search engine out there.
That's
all
right.
right, with it, look, the search engine's intent is to give you the best results humanly possible. And there's not a cost associated with it. But George, I gotta be surprised. I'm still surprised how many dealerships have not done this.
Right. I think in some cases they may have heard from a consultant who says, no, you don't want to have multiple profiles. You want to have one, because if you set up multiple profiles, you're going to delete all your reviews. You're going to have to go out there and get reviews for the different properties. And anyone who says that just isn't looking at the data, right? So when you look at the data, when you look at a Google Business Profile, if you go in the reporting that Google provides, they will show you the top queries for that profile, right? And you want your sales listing, your main listing, you want those top queries to be your brand or Chevy dealer near me if you're a Chevy dealer. But for your fixed operations, you want the number one to be oil change near me, brake repair near me. You want those to be non-branded category fixed op searches. And when you do that, I think you'll realize, and when you look at that data, you'll realize that the only way to have that success is by having individual profiles.
For sure. And the cool thing is it's not that advantage, but also the analytics that you're able to create off that, which thus actually just helps better paid marketing efforts when you're able to actually see the analytics on an individual basis. I mean, I know I've helped some dealerships do this based on some of your guidance that you've put out there, and they're just like, wow. All of that, so much of that is service. They just assumed so much, or almost the majority of all of their searches was because of the sell side, when in reality, almost 70% in this particular case, 60-70% was service.
Yes. I mean, there's been a number of companies over the years that have, usually the call tracking companies will do a study every few years where they'll listen to every single phone call, either with a human or with a bot, and they'll listen to all the phone calls that come from a Google Business Profile or from someone doing organic search on a website, and the numbers are always 70%, 80% service, 20-30% sales. And so usually that triggers the sales side to say, why are we funding this paid search when in fact 70% of the calls go to service? And so that's a separate conversation.
It's a good podcast. Actually, that is good. That would be a good podcast topic. So now that I can actually see how this traffic comes into my site and what path they're taking, it gives me an opportunity as a web developer to really start looking at, how can I optimize kind of that digital dealerships experience. Before it was all kind of clumped together, and there were, of course, unique ways of trying to separate it out, but this really gets it super close. Now, that's a great segue kind of into our next topic around G4, which is your next workshop.
Yes.
So let's go into what are going to be some of the key takeaways in that particular workshop.
So both workshops are on the same topic. So both are on gotcha. GBP, but I did the GA4 book is relatively new, and Digital Dealer last fall gave a two-part full-on, how-to for GA4. Brian Pash has been working on the ASC standards on events, so we're starting to see those now release after January 1st. It's pretty exciting. See those flow through, and so, we are extremely busy and will be until July 1st when that hard switchover happens and we convert all of our customers off of current Google Analytics. Yeah.
So let's get into let's go Google Analytics 101 real quick.
Sure.
Because I still think there's a fair amount of dealers that might see a post that comes through and goes GA4 upgrade and hey, it's running out of time. We're running out of time. We're running out of time. They're like, what is it? Why do I care? Let's start there. Why do I care?
I think most dealers think that GA4 is simply like the next version of Excel, or I'm getting an update on my Microsoft Word, and it's not. I mean, it's a completely new analytics. It's as if the dealership said, look, we're switching to Adobe Analytics or Power BI, or we're completely changing our analytics platform. That's what GA4 is, right? Because you need all new code to be put in, and if you're not careful, and if you outsource that code to a third party, you may not be admins for that new account, and that would be That'd be a shame to leave that vendor 2 years later and realize that all that history is theirs. You're not going to be able to keep your Google Analytics. So.
And what are some of the opportunities that dealerships have with this new version of analytics?
Yeah, with GA4, it's going to be a lot more accurate. So there was some built-in inaccuracies with Google Analytics Universal. GA4 also gives a better look into the shopping funnel. So as opposed to early touch, late touch, you now have early, middle, and late touch, and a more sophisticated model around that. It's all event-based, and so it really forces, I think, all providers to count everything based on events.
Yes.
And even more specifically, I mean, the events themselves are far more powerful, where you can pass data from the website through the events. So you might be able to, in Google Analytics, run a report and look at your, organic search or paid search effectiveness on CPO vehicles versus new vehicles or something like that.
Yeah, and let's dive a little farther down like the event rabbit hole, right? Because I think they're like, okay, events. What is an event? And what are some of the struggles were with the previous version of analytics? Many dealerships, you'll have trade-in tools, you'll have finance tools. All right, you're going to have a lot of different, maybe lead generation or customer data capture tools on your website, but not all those tools were reporting in the same way. In fact, actually, many of them aren't. And for the longest time, we lost sight of what happened. What happened when a service customer went to go book their service appointment? I know they went to the page.
Yes.
And then the iframe was there.
Yep. That's a broken thing in our industry, and it's a shame. So you're probably referring to Xtime from Cox, a great tool and huge market share, but completely invisible to Google Analytics. And so you can't attribute fixed ops campaigns to the ultimate conversion, which is an appointment. And so we actually met with them this morning and made our annual case to them to say, please start making these tools visible. I do think that in GA4 that becomes more of a liability to companies like KBB and Xtime that aren't firing those events, because they will no longer be able to do like optimized Facebook audience campaigns. They won't be able to look at how their tool affected the shopping funnel in GA4. So it seems like the work would be lightweight. I hope they're watching this and they take the advice and start making those tools more visible for digital marketers.
Look, and that's not just a benefit for the digital marketers. It's a benefit to the dealership. Yes. I mean, I think we've talked about this on another podcast where we talked about like ad spend waste, and it is a rampant issue in our industry. I mean, I hate to say it, but I think I think as a vertical, there's probably more ad spend waste in our vertical than I would say probably any other vertical out there. Yeah. And I think a lot of dealers goes, well, okay, isn't my agency on top of this? Aren't they responsible for that?
Yeah, I think the agencies in a lot of cases don't do a good enough job of educating dealers. And I try to advise them to say, the more you educate dealers on how to interpret the data and interpret their reports, the less likely you are to get fired. Because I think dealers, because they don't necessarily dive in and understand all the data and the reporting, an agency may last on average 18 months or so before they flip and find somebody new, because someone came in and made a presentation that looked really nice and they end up firing an agency, not because their performance was poor, they just saw something else that looked more interesting. And so as you teach them to understand and they understand the metrics and they look at the reporting, they can see what a good job you're doing, and they're less likely to switch.
100%. So I moved to Nashville, right?
Nice.
And
great city.
I took up fishing. No, I'm not by any means a good fisherman at all, right? But I was talking to a dealer the other day.
It's rainbow trout, right? In the streams and stuff, right?
A lot of bass.
Okay.
And it's not a type of fish I fly fish as a kid, so I understand the whole trout concept. I understand, but bass fishing, that's a very different thing, right? And then that's what I was explaining to a dealer the other day. Well, how important is this? I said, well, you ever gone fishing blindfolded? And if so, did it ever work? Because that's what we're talking about, right? We don't know, all right? If you don't have this set up, all right, here very soon, you're not going to know where and what your customer does. Or you don't know where they are. You don't know what they ended up doing, all right? And that is just going to generate exponentially more ad waste because we're not targeting people at the right time with the right message.
Yes. Completely agree. Yeah, Google Analytics is the key for dealers to get visibility, to really take control of the reporting. So they're not leaning on agency reports; they control that dashboard themselves. And then, I mean, if they're really on their pro game, they would then take that Google Analytics 4 data and pipe that into Data Studio, now called Looker Studio, to be able to get a better visualization.
I was curious, what was the name change for? Like, I don't. It was kind of an odd one.
They acquired a company named Looker, I guess, some years back, and now I think they're just changing. To maybe make it brand better, I don't know.
I thought it was a funny change, to be honest with you. I was
yes.
okay, sure, why not?
Not April Fools.
Not April Fools. Hey, you did say something about control, and I think this is super important for anybody that's watching and listening to this podcast. Is are you in control of your analytics, and do you own these profiles? Because I am still amazed. And I'm talking some really large agencies, some that unfortunately are even here now.
Yes.
Where they are the owners of these accounts, not the dealers. Let's talk a little bit about how that can be an issue and why it's important to dealers to own their own data.
Yes. So the comment I made earlier about GA4 as a brand new analytics installation, that's what creates the risk for the dealers, because if they think they're the admins on their current, or they are the admins on their current Google Analytics, when they move to GA4, that doesn't automatically happen. You have to intentionally ask for that to happen. We met with big vendors today at the booth who have GA4s for all their dealers, but the dealers aren't admins. So of course, for our customers, we're uploading all those GA4 accounts to those companies so they can start firing the new ASC events, but making sure the dealers own it. And so, and that's honestly why I wrote the book, the Amazon book, A Car Dealer's Guide to Google Analytics 4, was because I was so concerned last year when I learned that was the process they were taking. Yeah. And so I started writing a bunch of PDFs that I was sending out to dealers to set up their own GA4, and then ended up just writing more and making it into a book. But it's definitely the mission at hand.
Well, let's go a little bit more into the book, because I think it's great. What would be, if anybody listening, watching, what would be maybe 3 of your biggest takeaways in that book?
So in the GA4 book, it's, and again, if you just go to Amazon and just search for my name, you'll find it. The biggest takeaways, one, are how to set it up. I mean, there's a lot on the setup, getting all the defaults where you want them to be. So that's a piece of it. Events, how to track all the events that are flowing through, how to measure which ones you want to mark as a conversion, for like a hard conversion on your website. And then the final one, which I may end up doing a session at Digital Dealer in the spring, is all about how to use explorations. The new reporting in GA4 is very powerful, and it's called Explorations. And it's really more of a report writer than what exists today in Google Analytics Universal. It looks very hairy. It's not that tough, but dive into that, and it's pretty powerful.
It is, and getting all those data points organized into one single space is going to have even more benefit as we move into the future. I think we're actually just kind of scratching the surface, all right, of getting more insights as far as the path the consumer takes and what they ultimately end up doing.
Yes.
But connecting all these different widgets, collecting my digital what happens on my digital retailing. There's so many significant points in the customer's journey that happens on a DR product. It happens in a finance application. That happens in a trading application. And now being able to pump that into one place and give myself a real vision or a view of what my customer is taking from a journey perspective online, and now even being able to pump in some offline,
right,
which I'm going to see. I actually just recently met with a dealership, very, very tech savvy dealer principal. It was that was just he's the dealer principal's son, and very tech savvy, and he's even pumping in offline.
Nice. So
data
how's he
to
doing
it.
that? So what's that look like?
He's using another system. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but now he's actually taking the transfer from what happens online to inline, and then connecting all the dots from his CRM as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because we know the dealers sometimes will do heavy up on traditional, and so we've had customers that said, "Hey, from Thanksgiving to Christmas, we're going to be doing heavy TV and radio. How do we measure that?" And you measure it. You can see it in an organic search. Sometimes if you look at it hourly and you know the run times, you can actually see when that lift occurs. But connecting offline and online, not easy, but helpful if you can do it.
100%. And to this dealer's point is just how much less money they're spending because they know what their customer is doing.
Yes. Yep. Very true. But to your earlier point, you're right. I mean, the amount of waste in dealer ad budgets is gigantic. Most of it is in paid search. But yeah, getting in there and measuring. Yeah,
I think the next step, and we're going to see a lot more, is a much higher level of content optimization based on the analytics that we're able to cover. So no, we've always talked about, like you've heard it, we talk about content is king.
Sure.
Content is king. Content is king. But now we can really put some serious ROI behind that content, right, and what content interacted and what path that they took. I mean, it's exciting times.
Yeah, very true.
Man.
Very true.
Like, it's really exciting times.
Content on fixed ops pages, back to the fixed ops, talking about fixed ops for profiles, building out content on that service page. Google goes out and spiders those service pages and then gives that feedback to their Google Business Profile. So the website content really matters, especially on fixed. A lot of dealers have cookie cutter templated content on there from the OEM. I mean, it's just the way they do it. Get in there and customize some of that content and make it score better for you.
Absolutely. Hey, look, I know we're getting towards the tail end of our time today. Really appreciate you taking the time to come jam with me. But before I let you go, for everybody out there that's watching and listening, I would love to kind of connect, learn more about what you guys are doing, maybe even pick up the book. What's the best way to connect with you, George?
Yeah, the best way is just to search for my name. So if you just search for George Nenni in Google, you'll find all the books. You'll find our website to be able to see what our offerings are. Of course, I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, but that's probably the fastest way. And so love to help more dealers.
Awesome, man. Thanks for taking the time to jam with me. It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks for tuning in to the Matador Podcast with your host, Jason Harris. Be sure to check out the full podcast library at matador.ai to stay in the know. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe.